Hey everyone! Today I want to talk about The Last Laugh from 1924 by F.W. Murnau. This is the 25th episode of my 1000 favorite movie series, where I talk about the movies I love the most in a random order. This is a video I'm very happy to be doing because it's the first silent movie on my list. I love silent movies a lot, mostly because of the atmosphere. It's somehow more transportive to watch a silent than a talkie, I think. They're so elemental and intuitive to our image comprehension skills that it just sweeps you up with no distractions. It's just you, the black and white image, the title cards, and the background music. In a dark room, for example, there's nothing like them. In a way, there isn't a better introduction to silent cinema than this movie, The Last Laugh. I won't say it's necessarily the most entertaining one, especially for newcomers to the form, but it does have probably one of the simplest plots in movie history, along with innovative camera work and lighting techniques that are marvelous to look at. It tells the story of a hotel doorman, played by Emil Jannings, who is probably one of the most iconic silent movie stars. He loves his job and takes great pride in it, both at work and in his neighborhood, where he proudly parades around in his uniform. However, one day he gets fired due to his old age and is demoted to being a washroom attendant in the same hotel. This is made to seem basically like the equivalent of death, and I suppose to him it is. His pride and joy have been taken away, and now everyone in the neighborhood laughs at him. That night, he goes back to the hotel washroom and sleeps, accepting his lonely fate. So that's the story. A man gets demoted. It kind of reminds me of the ugly barnacle speech in SpongeBob. It's incredibly simple, and while nobody dies in this story, Jennings' acting and Murnau's direction make it seem like the most tragic thing in the world. One thing I like about silent movies is a different acting style, which tends to be more exaggerated, portraying all their emotions very clearly and on the surface. Of course, there's plenty of silent movie acting that's subtle, but Jennings' performance isn't an example of that. He was about 40 when the movie was released, yet the way he carries himself and his extensive facial hair make him look much older than that. His character is a very slow, lumbering old man who walks kind of hunched over with his arms like sticking out like they're numb a lot of the time. The various poses he finds himself in become an essential part of the composition of the shots. This very deliberate portrayal of this enormous man, who starts out dignified and gets more and more pathetic with this hunched over manner, lends the movie a certain elemental power that's hard to find in non silent movies. There are also some nice lighting effects that punctuate his emotions. The most memorable example comes from the lamp of the hotel's night watchman. At first, it's shown to be like a ghost haunting the halls of the hotel at night, but later, when they meet face to face, the light shines directly on his face and overwhelms him, as it does later when he's sitting in utter defeat in the bathroom. There's also a nice lighting effect when we see the exterior of the neighborhood where he lives. It's a scene more than a minute long of the lights of the building going out as the day ends, and then the sun gradually lighting the place up again, and we also see more and more people opening the windows and coming outside. This lighting, and not to mention the great sets, are combined with expressionistic camera movements that really make the movie come alive. From the famous opening shot of the camera riding down an elevator, movies were never the same again. Most movies at the time were fairly static in their camera movements, but this movie really helped pave the way for a much more dynamic camera, including its several dolly shots. This is usually cited as having the first of these kinds of shots, which frankly is hard to believe. Considering the unbelievably rich history of silent movies, especially the fact that most of them are lost, claiming that anything is the first of anything is a rather dubious assumption. However, it's difficult to imagine an earlier movie with this many dolly shots, and many other types of moving camera shots as well. Take this one, for example, which strikes me as the most modern shot of the movie, where Jennings is on a spinning platform, so the environment behind him moves while he stays face towards the camera. Another one of my favorites is this one, where he's opening the letter informing him of his demotion. The camera starts off static as he slowly opens the letter and puts on his reading glasses, but when he starts reading the letter, the camera starts moving out of nowhere and dollies into him, even going through the glass door. This is done through a fade, and while the fade isn't perfect, it's very close, nevertheless standing as a very impressive technical feat. This is one of my favorite kinds of shots in movies, where the camera starts off still but unexpectedly moves after a while. Another interesting thing about this movie is the fact that it has no intertitles. That's right, aside from in story text like a letter, there are no cards to indicate what the characters are saying. But the fact that it does without one of the staples of silent cinema isn't missed at all. The story is so simple, and the way it's told is so clear that we always understand what's going on. Even more controversial, especially as the years have gone by, is the ending. When it appears that the movie is over and the main character is alone in the bathroom, a title pops up and says that the author provided an unlikely happy ending, and so our hero luckily inherits the fortune of a millionaire who died in the washroom. He spends the rest of the movie eating a large meal cheerfully, going back to the washroom to give his successor a big tip, and leaving in a carriage with the night watchman from before. Back around this time, there are many instances of studios forcing happy endings onto pictures that didn't need them. And to be honest, I really don't know what the story behind this ending was, but I do know that Murnau directed it himself, something that couldn't be said about many other such endings. I used to find this ending very difficult to accept, and it seems like most modern viewers feel the same way. However, I've warmed up to it, and a big reason for me to take it seriously is that Murnau did do it himself. Of course, it can be viewed as a cheesy, happy ending, but there's also a more tragic way to view it, I think. The title emphasizes that this sort of event unfortunately doesn't happen in real life, and so the ending becomes bittersweet with that in mind. As escapist entertainment for the people in the downtrodden Weimar Republic, the ending is a welcome respite from the depressing previous ending. But if you didn't forget about how the story should have ended, then it becomes almost unbearably sad. Like, this is a vividly visualized dream of something that will never happen, either to you or the character. Heck, if thought about as a dream sequence, then this becomes a very moving ending. Well, regardless of what you think of the ending, I would never do without it, if only just for the great scene of him helping out the new person in his past job. It might be the most entertaining scene in the whole movie. Now, onto my favorite moments. One is a brief but mind blowing shot of the hotel falling down on the hero. It's obviously just his imagination, but it's nearly impossible not to be reminded of the shot from Inception of the world bending. I don't know if this was the inspiration for it, but it just goes to show that this movie has a visual reference in a movie released about 86 years later. Next is another wild shot, which is a drunken dream sequence. Jennings is able to grab a huge suitcase with one hand over his head with ease, and walks over to the courtyard of his neighborhood. As he does this, the image becomes extremely blurry, yet the camera still dollies and tracks him while getting the reaction of various people. I mean, just look at it. I don't need to explain why this is probably one of the most hallucinatory shots ever put on film. Finally, it's probably the only moment of the main part of the movie that makes me laugh. Throughout the movie, Jennings moves very slowly and deliberately, so much so that we've kind of gotten used to it and accepted it. Well, towards the end, when he's told to go into an apartment, he very slowly walks through the door as expected, but suddenly the guy just quickly grabs him and pulls him in. Maybe it's not supposed to be a funny moment, but I have a suspicion that it was supposed to be a joke. But in the end, what I love about The Last Laugh is that it emerges an almost laughably simple story with innovative and experimental filmmaking techniques, making this a great example of the silent film form. It's one of my 1000 favorite movies. Thanks for watching my video. ご視聴誠にありがとうございます. Have you seen The Last Laugh? Let me know what you think in the comments. I think of all of my favorite movies as my friends, and I think of my audience as friends too. Remember, I upload a new video every Friday, so if you want to help me complete this 1000 favorite movies epic, don't forget to like and subscribe.